Hello, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of Effortless. I am your host, Dr. Spiegel. That is Dr. Piddle over on my left side.
Hello, everyone.
We are going to be talking about a lot of stuff today. Just kidding. We're not talking about anything today. This is actually probably going to be the shortest episode of Effortless in the history of the show. We did want to do a show this week, but there is literally nothing to talk about. There's no news. There's a bunch of NX rumors floating around, but who cares? Because it's all just crap, just like the photos were, and I'm not going to delve into it. I'm not going to do a whole episode on a rumor ever again, because it's just a big waste of time, because then it's irrelevant like 2 days later. So
yeah, what really happened this week?
Nothing. I mean, what? The Dark Souls is coming out tomorrow as of this recording. There's a new Ratchet and Clank game. Apparently both are really good. So if you got a PS4, hey, you finally have a reason to play that piece of junk.
Finally, shots fired.
Took long enough. But we're still playing games, or at least Piddle is. Piddle beat like 100 games this week, and I only beat one. But
Yep.
we are going to talk about that. We are trying to play 52 games in 52 weeks. And how many games did you beat this week? Like 8?
Out of 6 or 7, something like that.
I can't count. We're going to do this in 2 parts because the good games are going to be at the front half of the show. And then when we're done talking about our last topic, you can just turn off the show if you don't want to hear about the other crappy PC games that Piddle played.
I'd highly suggest it.
Yeah.
I really just looked at howlongtobeat.com, and I looked at my Steam list and the shortest games that I had not beaten so far and went from there.
So basically you're like hardcore cheating.
Is that cheating?
I think it's cheating because it's just, I mean, I guess you intended to play them in the future, but like that's the type of strategy that I think you would want to employ more like the last month of the year when you're like still 10 games behind.
I just wanted to clear some of my backlog.
I mean, I guess that's the point of this whole thing, so I guess that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to go ahead and start with the namesake of this episode. You played and beat over the past couple of weeks The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword on the Nintendo Wii. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, I beat Twilight Princess HD, and I wanted more Zelda. So
Can't blame you.
So yeah, I decided to go forward with playing Skyward Sword. I had fond memories of it. When I first played it, I remember I gave it a 5 out of 5. Tried to play it again, and I don't know, immediately came across some problems that you know about with my Wii remote controller.
Yeah. So the Wii Motion Plus is basically a piece of junk. It doesn't work after like a short period of time. So
Yeah.
you just keep buying new ones and hopefully they work.
I don't know if you want to call it like the gyro sensors or the accelerometer. I think the Wii Motion Plus has actual gyro sensors though, correct?
I don't know. The only thing I know about the Wii Motion Plus is the first time it was demoed at E3, they had Skyward Sword up on stage, and I think this might have been Nintendo's last press conference as well, or maybe one of them, was Miyamoto was up there like trying to show how to play the game, and he was like, oh, it's not working because you're all using your stupid cell phones. So that was a red flag right there in my mind. Oh, look, they're using an unreliable technology to demo this game in front of like 1,000 people.
It's really such a shame. Yeah, so I tried to play it with my existing Wii Motion Plus controller, and it was not working. I was trying to play it, and
Valiantly.
all my movements were just so completely far off that it was unplayable. I actually somehow managed to get like through the third temple with it, but it was a miserable experience.
I can't believe you could do that flying challenge thing. You know, like that last thing that before you go down onto the earth, you know, the earth below,
Yeah.
and you're on your loft wing and you're trying to race around. I couldn't even. That's about as far as I got with my broken Wii Motion Plus.
Oh, you have one too? Great.
No, I had one, and I bought it. I just bought a new controller and it works fine. But
yeah, actually, I had a dongle too, so I had.
Yeah, those dongles are freaking worthless. They don't do anything.
The dongle, that's what I ended up using, and the dongle works worse than the Wii Remote Plus. I actually bought my existing Wii Remote Plus because it worked better with the game than the dongle did. But now in this case, because my remote crapped out, I had to use the dongle. And I don't know, it was serviceable. I wish I had a working controller like a fully functional controller, but I don't.
Could we use this time to like complain about how poorly manufactured Xbox One controllers are? Or are we not going to rip Xbox One today?
Are you having problems with yours yet?
No, but it's a matter of time. The thing like fell
It
off.
is.
The thing fell a foot off the couch yesterday, and I was scared for its life. I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's never going to work again." And to be honest, I don't really play my Xbox One enough to even know if it doesn't work. So
Drifting analog sticks are a real problem with the Xbox One controller, and you know that. And I already
Yeah.
complained about it with mine, and I haven't replaced it yet because it just makes me angry. I don't know.
regarding drifting analog sticks, and I know we're getting way off topic, but this is effortless. I was playing my PS2 the other day, and the controller that I've had for 13 years finally started just a little bit to not be super responsive. 13 years!
And the best part is those PlayStation 2 controllers are like $25, $30.
I know! You could buy
And
one
now you
now
have-
for $20.
It's $60 for a brand new Xbox One controller. Like, what? You know what? I hate this whole market right now. Hate it. It's
It
just
didn't take us
crap.
very long to get there. If
Yeah,
you're
it didn't take
if this
us
is the
long.
first Effortless you've ever listened to somehow, this is basically the show. So if you don't like what we're talking about, just like turn us off and never listen to us again, because we're never really gonna grow and evolve from I hate everything about the gaming industry. That's about where
we're
we
not.
are as a show.
Anyway, Skyward Sword. I'll just try to give a brief-ish rundown of the game. I still think it has a lot of great gameplay designed in the game. The game is constantly sort of shifting you towards new gameplay objectives, and yeah, it mixes it up. Like when you do revisit areas, you're doing something different when you revisit those areas, except for the few times that you're just doing a collection quest, a mandatory
Getting the music notes or
fetch
whatever.
quest. Yeah.
Ugh.
Well, no, because the music notes, that is a little bit different because you're sort of swimming and
It's underwater, yeah, and
yeah, it's
Let me
underwater.
ask-
The
let
way
me
you
ask you
collect
this.
the notes is a bit different.
this is a point of contention amongst Zelda fans because a lot of them were like, "Oh, I don't like going back to the same areas over and over and over again." Did you have a problem with that?
Like I said, it's the gameplay changes, and that's good. Like when you go back for the trials where you have to collect the tiers, those are sort of like interesting, tense gameplay moments, and I really like that. Sometimes it can be frustrating if you screw it up too much, but it can be really tense and exciting. So it sort of mixes it up that way when you revisit areas for the second time. And then you revisit areas the third time, and again, it mixes things up, like where you're collecting the notes underwater. It's just, I don't know what it is about all the areas. You never feel like you're exploring or discovering anything. You just feel like you have these very gameplay specific tasks to complete.
And we
I
talked
think
about
that-
this last week with Nintendo and how that most of their games lately seem to be so gameplay focused that they have lost that world building mentality when it comes to creating games.
And that's exactly the issue with Skyward Sword. And it sucks because there are parts of the game where I'm just like, this is a really cool place. I don't know. It's hard to explain, but you never feel like you're really, finding anything new, finding anything exciting. But I did like how a lot, like when you first start the game, a lot of the gameplay is just designed around, okay, you sort of know where to go, but you need to know how to traverse the terrain in order to get to where you want to go. And that's sort of interesting. The stamina gauge, which everybody hated, it had a lot of interesting gameplay or game design. I don't know how to describe it.
Potential, right? Like there are a lot of things you could do with that. I am also in the crowd that hated the stamina meter. I
Because
thought
it was just a purely gameplay thing.
it just
didn't-
made it feel like too much of a game.
And
it
that's
is
exactly
a game.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just, everything felt, you never felt invested in the world. And it really sucked because some of the characters, or actually a lot of the characters in this game, are my favorites in the series. Like, Groose is amazing. I love Groose. His bravado and his just sort of,
And the fact that he's a secondary character that actually evolves over the course of the story.
yeah,
Which
exactly.
is not something that Nintendo does very much.
And I told you I sort of wished, like while I was playing it, I wish that Nintendo had sort of released DLC for this game where you could play as
Oh
Groose
my
instead of
God.
Link. How awesome would that
I
have
don't
been?
know. I don't want any Nintendo DLC ever again.
I loved Girahim as a villain. I thought he was really interesting. Personally, I actually liked Demise as well, and I really liked the setting of the last battle. I thought it was sort
No
of like,
spoilers, of course. Sorry, everybody.
yeah, it was sort of a cheap cop out with his anger, and I don't know. Sorry, people, spoiling if you haven't played the game yet.
Who cares?
How it'll like follow Link's spiritual ancestors and Zelda's blood-related ancestors for like all eternity. I thought that was sort of cheap, but
What is going on at your house? That sounds like there's a windstorm or like a truck driving through your living room. What is that?
there is a garbage truck
Oh, great.
being really loud.
That's awesome.
And then there it goes, backing up.
Yep.
Man, I just want to start this episode over.
No, I think we're doing a good job.
So, yeah, I don't know. The marketplace I really liked. A lot of things you do in Skyloft I really liked. It's one of my favorite towns in the series.
A lot of good waifu material in the sky.
Yeah,
Skyloft.
I really, after this game, I want like a waifu simulator for Zelda, just like Fire Emblem. People will probably hate me for that.
Well,
but
now you're really like regretting not starting this episode over. So let's go ahead and get your final thoughts on the game before we go any further down that road.
it just didn't feel like an adventure. And the fetch quest parts really started to bother me. How you have to fly from one location to the other location all the time is actually terrible game design, considering how many parts of this were done intelligently and done well.
Yeah, like why did they feel you needed this central hub like Super Mario 64? Nintendo, you mixed up your games. You're supposed to put the hub in the Mario game, and you're supposed to make the Zelda game feel like a big open world.
It's a poor central hub too, because it's not a interesting central hub.
Yeah, like every time I went back to Skyloft, I was like, when can I get to the next part of the game?
There was
I
nothing
didn't-
to actually discover in that hub.
Yeah.
And Super Mario 64 had a hub, but that hub itself was its own sort of world. Not the case here, I feel like.
Yeah.
Um,
I feel like all we've done is complain about the game, but it's still a Zelda game, people. It's still
the
really
enemy,
good.
the enemy AI is really good. I want it to continue as the series moves forward. When the controls work well, the sword fighting is really compelling and just a total joy.
It was fun. It was funny because that game, Skyward Sword, is probably the first time I've ever struggled at any point in a 3D Zelda game with combat, because combat was very easy up until that point. And then they finally were like, oh, here's what we can do to make the fights harder. And it was, I was impressed by it. Like I actually died a couple times in combat, not just by doing stupid things. And that was very, it was refreshing to die in a Zelda game, and which is kind of a weird thing to say. Because I don't like losing. I hate losing.
So I don't, considering how much we complained about it, I'm giving it a 4 out of 5 because I still think a lot of the gameplay there is great. It's just not. It's so not Zelda.
It doesn't have that one thing like tying it together as this complete package that means you have to play this game. Like Skyward Sword is a completely inessential Zelda game in my mind.
And it really dragged on for me.
Oh, there's so much padding in that game.
I mean, I couldn't believe. I seriously thought I was done with the game. I was going to finish the game. Okay, I'm going to finish it today, and I played it for several hours and didn't make like any progress. And that happened for like 3 days, where I thought like I'm going to finish it today. Nope, I'm going to finish it the next day. And like the final day, I thought I was going to finish it within like a couple hours, and it ended up taking me like 6 hours to beat.
Man.
So, yeah, it's padded, but I 100%ed it. I'm done with it. I actually don't have much desire to go back to it.
That's
anymore.
pretty cool that you 100%ed a game like that. That's I'm pretty impressed with that. I've never 100%ed that one.
So, tell us about the game that you played, which is
one of
my favorite games.
My
of all
game
time.
is a spectacular game, and last episode I talked about. I don't know if it was last episode, but the last time I actually beat a game was Metroid 2, and immediately I was like, I gotta go play another Metroid game, because Metroid 2, while good, And while it hinted at a lot of the things that Metroid does well, it wasn't quite that like complete Metroid package that I needed. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to play a Metroid game I've never played instead of just falling back on my whole, oh, I'm going to play Metroid Prime like 5 times in a row. I decided to play Metroid Fusion, which I have on my 3DS as part of the 3DS Ambassadors program because I'm an elitist. So I have Metroid Fusion on my 3DS, and I've been playing through it over the past probably week and a half or so. And it's a really, really good game. Like this. Now I understand what everyone's talking about when they say, "Oh, Metroid Fusion, one of the best Metroid games." I totally agree. It's so well paced. It's that classic like Super Metroid side scroll. It's basically Super Metroid on Game Boy Advance with a different story. But one thing I will say that I liked better about this game than I liked Super Metroid, and it's the reason that Super Metroid was not on my top 50 last year, was because Super Metroid doesn't really give you a direction. You're just sort of forced to wander around and hope that you find something. Metroid Fusion does this thing where it makes it really linear, but every time you go to a new area, you have to go into the navigation room and you uplink to this computer that you're communicating with for the whole game. He gives you your objective, and then you have to go do that mission basically in this certain part of this new area that you're exploring. Now, some might be like, well, that makes the game too linear and I like to explore, and it doesn't. You can still explore. Like, you can go all over the place and like try to find secrets and stuff, but the game gives you a little bit of direction, and I feel like that really benefited both Metroid Fusion and the Metroid Prime games, which also gave you some direction. They would tell you the next place you needed to go, and then it was up to you to explore on the way there. And then after a while, the game kind of cut you loose and just let you do your own thing. And I feel like Metroid Fusion did that incredibly well. The combat is, as always, excellent. The game is gorgeous. It's one of the best looking games I've ever seen on Game Boy Advance, right up there with like Minish Cap and the Castlevania games. I couldn't recommend it any higher. It's going to be in my top 50 for sure this year, so you can look forward to that later. It's just an excellent game. I think it's better than Super Metroid, which I never thought I'd be able to say. Obviously not even close to Metroid Primes, so you can put those away. But I really liked it. I really liked everything about Metroid Fusion. The one thing I will say, and I'll let you talk in a second because I know you have a lot to say about it too, is that it's very, very difficult if you don't have all of the energy tanks. I cannot tell you how many times I died in that last part of the game, fighting the last few incredibly difficult bosses. The game at the end of it, it tells you how much time you spent playing it. The game had me logged at like 4 hours and 30 minutes or so. But I checked my activity log on my 3DS, and I actually had spent almost close to 8 hours playing the game. So I lost probably about 3.5 hours of time, just like redoing the stuff that I did, and then died and had to do over. So that's it.
I mean, you said a lot. I consider it a better game than Super Metroid as well.
And that's blasphemy, right? Like every Nintendo fan expects us to be like hardcore, like, oh, the 90s were so much better. No, this game came out in 2002, and it was better.
The purists will say, like, no, it like ruined the Metroid series because now it made it a linear experience. And, you know, as much as I like non-linearity to my games, I think there's something to be said for a well-told story and pacing. And those are two things that Fusion has that Super Metroid doesn't really have. I mean, Super Metroid, it lets you loose on this great world to figure out what to do and where to go.
Make no mistake, it's a great world.
Yeah, and it's a great world, and like the solitude is part of the story, but it doesn't really have many storytelling moments to it. It's mostly just like, yeah, you're immersed in this world. And some of the storytelling is done just by inferring what happened or what is going on,
which is cool. And all the really good Metroid games have all these unique storytelling elements that the other ones don't have. Fusion is the only Metroid game I think I've played that straight up tells you exactly what's going on, but the story is so good that you kind of forgive it, and you're just sort of like, well, this is a cool story. And I can't remember the last time I looked at a Metroid game on the surface and said, cool story that you're going to experience.
Yeah,
because it's always a choice in the other ones to experience the story.
that's exactly it with Fusion. It has a great story, great pacing. Man, I love the tense moments that you get with SAX chasing me
Oh man,
after you.
when the SAX comes after you, yeah, you're gripping your 3DS. You couldn't drop it if someone tried to yank it out of your hands.
Especially the first time you play. I think in subsequent playthroughs, like you sort of know what to do, but that first time, it's a great experience.
Well, I
So
mean, look at the punishment for dying. Of course you're like stressed out and in
that
this intense mode.
that might be the biggest knock against Fusion is it's not nearly as replayable as Super Metroid probably is.
Or Metroid Prime.
I mean, considering all the other things it does, I think it's for a first playthrough, it is one of the best in the series.
It's a completely unique Metroid experience, and I know I compared it to Super Metroid earlier by saying it basically is Super Metroid, but I meant more in terms of gameplay. In terms of an actual like full game experience, I can't remember the last time I went into a game expecting something and then came out of it while having those expectations, those original expectations were met, and then more so. I already knew the game was going to be great, but I was surprised at just how great it was. So I give it a 5 out of 5. Obviously, I think you were going towards that direction.
I was going to ask what you were going to give it.
Yeah, it's a 5.
All right.
So speaking of great stories, you go ahead with your last one here.
Not the last game I played because we're going to go over 5 more at the end of the show.
Very quickly,
but
hopefully.
I wanted to talk about this one earlier in the show because I gave this a 4 out of 5. I'll just give my review or my score right off the bat. And this game was a PC game that I got on Steam, and it's called To the Moon. It is sort of a interactive story kind of game. There's not what's there in terms of gameplay is pretty bare bones. It's just to sort of mix up what you're doing, I guess.
So describe what exactly it is, because you tried to explain it to me and I didn't really.
Yeah. It's an interesting story. So it sort of takes place sometime in the future. I'd say probably like 40 years from now. And it's the story of an old man who's pretty much on his deathbed. And he calls in this agency or this service that will send a couple, I don't know, doctors to your residence. And they have a machine that they'll hook up to you, and they'll sort of give you a dream. They'll help give you a dream where you get to live out your life, where all your like aspirations and your hopes and whatever don't get bogged down by just the realities of life. So that's sort of the direction they go in. It's like, yeah, if everything went perfectly, if you never gave up on your dreams, what's actually going to happen in your life? And
I'd be interested to see what my machine would turn up.
Yeah, me too. So these two scientists, as they go back, I mean, this old man, his dream is to go to the moon, and he doesn't know why. He doesn't know why he actually wants to go to the moon. And usually with their clients, these doctors have a reason why somebody wants to do this thing that they never really accomplished. And with this guy, yeah, he doesn't know. So they're just like, well, we'll go through your memories and we'll figure it out. We'll be able to get you.
Don't spoil it too much, by the way.
Yeah. To reach your dream. The way it works is they go through memories is they have to start at his most recent memories and work their way backwards. And the way that they work backwards is they sort of find common objects through a person's life as they go back and back and back through their memories. So like you'd have a memory of something when you're 60, but that you sort of had that object also in your life when you're 55. And so that sort of what helps them leap back in somebody's memories. And so it's just sort of like a story about this old man and his wife. And for me, when I finally got through the story, it was very emotional. I don't want to spoil anything because I think it's something you have to experience. It's something that's only 4 hours long. I'd suggest you
How much is it?
I think it's originally $15, but you can usually find it on the Steam sale for way less.
I'm sure you could get it for like really cheap this summer. I'll put it on my short list.
I think I got it for like $3 or something like that.
Very nice.
So yeah, I don't want to spoil it, but it was a very emotional story. The way that everything sort of connects together was really well done. It got me teary-eyed. I cried when I finished the game. I actually cried more after I beat the game, and I sort of thought about all the connections it had. So I don't know. I'm not a man. Whatever.
That's kind of like when I finished Virtue's Last Reward, and I like got the final plot twist, and then like 15 minutes later, after I'd shut the game off, all these other ideas came to me, and my mind just kept getting blown.
Yeah, and that's sort of what happened with me when I sort of just sat down and thought about it and like started to make these connections that I missed earlier.
Yeah. So I'll definitely check that out because it sounds like my kind of storytelling.
The only issue I have is like the controls are just terrible in this game. They're absolutely terrible. I had so many issues with the controls. I was trying to use a gamepad at first, and I ended up using a mouse. That worked a lot easier. And there are parts where you want to use a mouse or a keyboard instead of a controller. And then the other thing is it's a game where if you don't really get sucked into it, I don't think it's going to do much for you. And I almost did not get sucked into this game. Like, I was fast approaching the end of the game, and I was not emotionally invested in it. So you might play it, and it might be a complete miss, and you'll think it's okay, and it's sort of good, but not really amazing. But if it connects with you, you're going to find this a great experience.
Well, what? And if you finish it and you don't like it, I mean, it's like when I finished Gone Home. It's like, yeah, that was not that great, but I only lost 2 hours of my life, so it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, so that's all I have to say about that.
What's your score?
4 out of 5. I gave it at the beginning, but yeah.
Oh, you did?
Yep.
Wasn't paying attention. Okay.
It's a 4 out of 5 just because, like I said, controls are really bad, and I mean, it almost didn't get me pulled in.
Oh, wait, watch this. Watch this. So speaking of not paying attention, here are some companies that are not paying attention to what the fans want, because we've been asking for these sequels for a long time, and we have not got them, and that is our main topic, our quote-unquote main topic, even though we're only going to spend like 5 minutes on it.
Yeah, because we have no news.
Yeah, there's like nothing to talk about. They're really, I dare you to find something that we could have talked about today. In fact, leave a comment, and then we'll talk about it next week.
Yeah. What about those NX rumors?
What rumors? They're just fake and bad.
Yeah, like that's how we feel. It's just after the fake.
Like if you can fake a controller,
leak, we just don't care.
You can fake a controller. Everything's fake. It doesn't matter. It could be anything. Just show me the frickin' thing. Come on, Nintendo.
Unless we see something firm and hard, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I need a good firm hard rumor in my hand before I can. So sequels that we really want. I just wrote a quick list here. Beyond Good and Evil 2. I mean, I know it's Ubisoft, but how could they possibly mess that up?
Well, the first one sold terribly.
Yeah, but NX rumor.
But it was good.
Beyond Good and Evil 2 coming exclusively to NX. Yeah, frickin' right. Metroid 5, I wrote
now
after...
this is a good one.
After I played Metroid Fusion, before I was in the camp that wanted another Metroid Prime game, I now don't feel like Metroid Prime is even necessary to go back to. I like the direction they were going with the X-Parasite, and the fact that maybe there are still some Metroids out there, even though they all keep getting destroyed in every subsequent Metroid game. It's like every Metroid game... Nintendo is so bad at making timelines. Every Metroid game, Samus goes out and destroys, quote, the last Metroid, and then they always find like some little plot hole that they take so they can keep making Metroid games. And there is a plot hole in this one. So you can do it that way you will. But I want Metroid 5.
I don't care if it's Metroids or the X Parasite, honestly.
It's hard to call it a Metroid game if there's no Metroids in it, though. There were Metroids in Metroid Fusion. It just took till the end of the game to find them.
Well, in Fusion, isn't Samus technically like the Metroid?
She has
Sorta.
parts of Metroid like DNA infused into her body. That's why they call it Metroid Fusion, because like it was fused into her power suit, which like had to be removed from her body because it was killing her. And then she had like this fusion suit. So it's an interesting story. Go play Metroid Fusion.
Next game.
Then I wrote The Walking Dead season 3. This is kind of a no-brainer for me because I love the first 2 so much. And they give us like a crazy good cliffhanger at the end of 2, so they have to give us a part 3. And if they do give us
instead of making part 3, they're doing like the Michonne.
Yeah, I don't give a crap. I don't even know what that is. What's Michonne? I don't know what that is. I want.
And I don't know the Batman Telltale game, and who knows all these other.
Telltale keeps making all these games that nobody wants. Everyone wants season 3 of The Walking Dead. Who freaking cares about Minecraft story mode? They should have invested those resources in season 3. Come on. Red Dead Redemption 2 is easy. There's been rumblings forever that this is going to get announced this year, and I wouldn't be surprised.
People want it.
Yeah.
We want it bad.
I think it's going to happen. I think it's of all the games on this list, I think that has the best chance of getting shown at E3 this year. Red Dead Redemption 2.
I really want to replay Red Dead Redemption.
I'm going to play that very soon, especially if it gets announced at E3, because I got into it and then I kind of fell away from it. I probably played about 10 hours or so, and I just never went back, so I'm going to start it again. But I really enjoyed the time I spent with it.
It'd be nice if it came to the Xbox One for backwards compatibility.
It'd be nice if it came to the NX, Red Dead Redemption 2, that is, and it was an exclusive.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, right.
Like they would do that. They'll release Red Dead Redemption 2 on the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4 just so they can re-release it for the Xbox 1.5 and the PlayStation 4K.
Yes, you are right. Speaking of things that are never going to happen, yesterday I was at work and there's this kid came into the store and he's like, "Hey, do you have Grand Theft Auto 6?" And at first I'm like, who trolls people in person? And then I was like, where did you hear about Grand Theft Auto 6? He's like, oh, my friend told me. And I'm like, your friend told you? Are we still in the 90s? Like, aren't we past the point where your friend told you is like not a good excuse for not knowing something anymore? You can just look that stuff up. He's like an 11-year-old kid. He probably has a tablet and a cell phone and a freaking like HD TV in his bedroom.
How bummed was he when you told him that
he
it didn't exist?
He was really upset. I was
or
like,
did you try to
take a pre-order? I should have been like, yeah, that's coming out 2021, which is probably when it is coming out. Grand Theft Auto 5 is such a big success. Why do they need to make 6 right now? They're still. Do you know how many copies of Grand Theft Auto 5 I sold like yesterday?
How many?
Like I think 8 copies.
Well, it is. There have been months where it is the best-selling game.
I know, it's absurd. It's
like
absurd
now,
how well that game is selling. I mean,
what a beast.
Have you've played Grand Theft Auto 5, right?
Nope, I have not.
I haven't played it either. I'm waiting for it to not be popular anymore so I can like it.
I played Grand Theft Auto 4 and Grand Theft Auto 4 did nothing for me. So
wasn't that great? Like, here's the problem with a lot of those early like Xbox 360 games. They haven't aged that well. It's weird to be saying that now because at the time these games were fantastic. Like Fallout 3 it hasn't aged that well. I don't really want to play it. I don't know why.
They were so much about this is sort of funny because we talk about Nintendo and how gameplay oriented they are and how that's sort of a bad thing.
Yeah.
And at the beginning of this, like the 360 and the PlayStation 3, every game went like all in with
photorealism.
Yeah, photorealism.
The game that always pops into my head is Resistance: Fall of Man, which at the time was like the best looking game ever made, and now you can buy it at a store for 99 cents.
Or even the Uncharted series with 1, 2, and 3.
Bad example because those games are still incredible.
They're still really good, but there's a lot of parts of them that are bad. Like the interactive cutscenes. Now, when I go back and play them, I'm just like, oh my god, this is horrible.
Resident Evil 4 did them better. Just saying.
And I actually think it's interesting because you look at Uncharted 4 now, and they're really trying to go away from those interactive cutscenes.
I'm really excited to see how good Uncharted 4 is going to be. Is there any doubt in your mind that Uncharted 4 is going to be good?
No.
Yeah,
I think it's going to be great.
You know what? I also feel the same way about Star Fox Zero, which we talked about a couple weeks ago, how we were like really excited for it now. And if you go back like 4 months in the archive and listen to the Effortless, we're both like, yeah, we don't care about this game. It's probably going to suck. It looks really good.
I was cautiously optimistic still, just because I wanted more Star Fox.
You're right. I was the one who was just like, it's going to suck. But I was wrong, and I will own that. This game looks really good, and I'm excited to play it.
I will say, Digital Foundry just did a little video on its performance. And yeah, there are performance tips, but a lot of times it's a 60 frame per second game, which is really impressive. I know the graphics aren't the greatest or where people would like them, But then Digital Foundry also said that using the gamepad is something that is difficult and you don't really like it first, but the more you get used to it, the more it adds to the game, which is exactly what we wanted.
Yeah, it sounds really rewarding and like really challenging at first, but it sounds like I was listening to IGN's Nintendo voice chat, and they said basically if you master it, it becomes a really, really enjoyable experience. But at the same time, I can also see a lot of fans getting turned off by that. So we'll kind of see how it goes in a couple of weeks when it gets released.
Well, that was sort of the original Star Fox. I mean, you played through, and who got to Venom 2 on their first try?
I know.
Really?
Yeah. So, I mean, the game industry is just different now. So I'm not sure if a game like this will be successful. I mean, I'm sure it will be because it's a Nintendo published title on the Wii U.
Hopefully.
I mean, what Nintendo game hasn't sold more than a million on Wii U? They all have. So
if Star Fox Zero sells over 2 million, I think that will be a very
that's
successful
a huge success. That is a massive success if it sells that many.
I think that it would be a great number for it to hit. I think it'll hit 1 million, no problem. But if it hits 2 million, that's going to be big.
And Nintendo won't kill the franchise again like they did.
Yeah, by experimenting with it
Yeah, they'll just be like, oh, this is what people wanted. And then they'll make Metroid 5 and Super Mario 65 and I don't know, whatever. All right, that's it for the show. Thanks for listening, guys. I told you it was short. It's not going to look short on the outside because we're about to go over 5 more games really quickly, but that's it for the main part. So thanks. I'm amazed we got as much out of it as we did. It's like squeezing blood from a rock.
It was tough.
It is at this point that we lost all of the audio that we had recorded from that point forward. It was a really convenient stopping place, but unfortunately we lost every little aspect of Piddle's games that he was describing. So, from this point forward, this will be known as the lost episode of Effortless, and you will never hear it, and we will never hear it, because as far as we're concerned, it never even happened, because we don't have an audio record of it. So, on behalf of Piddle, I would like to kind of share with you the games that he beat. He gave them all a score of 3 out of 5. They are all on PC. They are called Expendabros, The Wonderful End of the World, Receiver, Newtopia, and a game called Half-Life Blue Shift, which he described as almost like DLC for Half-Life, and he actually gave that one a 4 out of 5. He revised his score. So thanks for listening, I guess, if you're still there.
Is there
Anybody here?
out there?
No? Okay, bye.
Is there anybody out there?